Yeah.
Man, I'm here with accomplished actor, writer, director Sean Stone. How are you doing today?
Can't complain, you know. It's a little chilly in Florida, right? It's good. You're down in Florida too, I think.
No, I just left Florida. I'm in Denver right now, and
Oh, you're colder then.
yeah, like but the weather's not so bad. Like it's cool. Like the weather's been crazy though. Like all around, like this year, just like global warming, man, is obviously a real thing. Like
Well, you think so? I mean, I look at it like weather warfare. Um, Weather warfare is very clear, but people in Florida have been talking about they've been spraying like crazy down in South Florida. While I was away, I didn't see it, but like just a lot of chemtrail spraying, and then you're getting these cold
you
snaps.
see those in the sky like all the time. The chemtrails, like is it's insane.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Different agendas at work there. But oftentimes you'll see it like the spraying, and then it'll rain, and then it'll rain down all those heavy metals that are in the chemtrails coming into the earth. So it's not necessarily good for the earth, but part of their logic is the Bill Gates logic. Oh, we're gonna block the sun or whatever. It's like I don't know. It's very odd.
Man, you mentioned Bill Gates. Do you think he has like a sinister agenda, like people like allege, like to destroy the population? It's like I think like he's this sinister character, like
Yeah,
depicted sometimes. You think he
of
is?
course. Oh, 100%. I mean, all you got to do is with Gates, watch Pirates of Silicon Valley, which is almost impossible to get a hold of. And I remember this when I was a kid. It was an HBO movie that was pretty, it was kind of like a cool, edgy little movie that was done with uh some very good actors. Noah Wiley was one, and it was basically Jobs versus Gates. And the way that this Pirates of Silicon Valley portrays Bill Gates is that he is just like a real sleazy guy, and Steve Jobs couldn't stand him, right? And so that's part of what's being depicted in that movie. Now you can't get a hold of that movie, even though HBO Max is now Max. That movie, it's like you got to go on archive.com to actually find it, or maybe get a DVD somewhere. It's really difficult. It's like Bill Gates suppressed that film because in the 90s he was so despised as this kind of like, Microsoft was this monopoly, and they were, being broken up by the feds. And then after that, he starts the Gates Foundation to clean up his image and basically portray himself as like this, humanitarian.
You mentioned, movies like Pirates of, the Silicon Valley, which was an amazing movie. You've been in some amazing movies yourself. What was your earliest like, movie like memory? Because you started off as a child actor, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, my earliest memories were like being on like the set of Wall Street and talk radio, maybe vaguely Platoon, but I mean, I was like a year old at that point, year and a half, so I don't know, how much I remember of that time period, but like just early subliminal stuff, and then Wall Street, being in New York on the sound stages and the Hamptons, and talk radio was Dallas. So I mean, like I have like early memories just of being, but then more distinct, as I got older, born on the 4th of July, being out there with like the soldier, seeing the soldiers, and they're doing these, Tom Cruise is doing the war sequences, and shot that in the Philippines. So, yeah, it was part of my memory, growing up between these two worlds of like fantasy, right, where you have like reenacted wars, and and uh and calling action and cut and everything in between, right, and all the play. And then there's the other side of just like growing up with like going to school and doing homework and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, you mentioned the movie Wall Street, and you're in that film, and Michael Douglas, he's also. What was it like working with him?
Well, he was very, he's always been very, very sweet, whenever I see him, very kind to me. Basically, he played my dad in that film, Wall Street, and he kind of he made a reputation really after that film as Gordon Gekko. If you think about, it really epitomized in many ways like his character in other films and later films. You oftentimes see him playing that suave sort of, a little bit like a little edgy, right? Like in The Game and movies like that, The Perfect Murder. I mean, it's like he is basically Gordon Gekko over and over since that film, because I think it kind of captures a certain aspect of this guy who's, obviously very wealthy, very powerful, has a certain air, a big self-confidence to him. So yeah, I mean, I was a kid. I mean, I remember, playing tennis with his son, here and there. We had like, we mess around, getting on like the ATV, that kind of stuff. But, we weren't like necessarily that close. It was just, moments.
Most definitely. You're also in the dramatic adaptation of JFK, which was directed by your dad. What was that experience like?
I mean, that's an epic movie. I loved being on set. We were shooting that in New Orleans, mostly New Orleans, because I don't know if I think there was also in Dallas a little bit, but I don't think I was there. I think I was just in the New Orleans phase, and I was acting as Kevin Costner's son. And he was also, very, just very sweet. Like we'd play baseball in the backyard kind of thing, right? But that film was so fun to be part of because you're basically, set in the 60s, late 60s, so that, you're wearing these kind of like the suit and everything from that time period, and all the sets are, dressed for that era. And it was just, it was really humid too, obviously. Back then it was like, I'm sorry, back then always in the South, New Orleans, it's sweltering, and coming to the summertime, it was just sweltering heat, in those, old three-piece suits and stuff. But it was a lot of fun to be in that, in that world.
That's dope, man. Like, I think like, we could go all day, like, about like, about the movie you've been in. Like, I'm a huge fan of The Doors. Like, I actually went to the same high school as Ray Manzarek, like,
Oh yeah.
years apart, like, you know what I mean, and stuff, rest in power, like, to him, man. But like, what was it like, like working on that film?
The Doors was interesting. I mean, I want to say like five. I want to say basically I was about five, maybe, when we were shooting it, 5 or 6. And I didn't really understand what, we were out in the desert, and I was in the opening playing young Jim Morrison. I didn't really have much lines. It was just a couple of things, but it was basically about this moment of, seeing the dead Native Americans on the side of the road, and how much that transformed young Jim Morrison. So, it was cool to be part of that scene. At the time, obviously, I didn't really understand. I wasn't like into the Doors, 5 years old, 6 years old. That wasn't my kind of music, but I did, it was cool just to be in that world of, again, like these desert scenes. I remember they brought I think it was a mountain lion. Was it a mountain lion, or like basically that was in one of the sequences, and when he goes into the cave. And I just remember how like everyone was freaked out, like, okay, Sean's got to stay away from the set because, I was 5. It was like, very, very small, very easily could have been mauled. So there was like, everyone was kind of making sure I was safe. But that was, again, just another experience where it's cool because you get to see both, you get to see the behind the scenes, you get to meet the people, and then you also, you watch the film and you're like, wow, what an amazing movie, and what a magical film. It still holds up in so many ways. But yeah, it's always nice to be able to have a little bit of the behind the scenes and in front. And thankfully my roles were always small enough. I think sometimes people that are more involved oftentimes have a harder time watching themselves. I know, like Johnny Depp talks about, he doesn't like to watch himself as in the movies. And I think that's one of the sad things of sometimes when you're so invested in it, whether it's directing or editing or starring, sometimes it's like you can't enjoy the movie because you've just seen it and been part of it and seen all the aspects, the positive, negatives, everything. You've had such an emotional connection to it for so long that you can't really enjoy it anymore. And that's something I've noticed. So it's sometimes, even my dad, I think, took time. It took him years to be able to like go back and actually watch the films and enjoy them, because you get so close to it that it's that love-hate relationship where you don't want to see it when it comes out. Whereas I was in these smaller roles, so I could just enjoy it and appreciate it.
In 2012, you released the film Greystone Park. It's based on true life experiences, I guess. Is that accurate?
Yeah, a lot of real life experiences. Um, so basically, that was talk about a film that I, it's like I can't even, I couldn't watch it for a long time, I guess, after being done with it, you just step away and you're like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to come back to that. I want to move on. But it was huge, it was about I would say like 3 years of my life that was deeply immersed in supernatural experiences, ghost hunting, breaking into like haunted mental hospitals in Jersey and New York, just exploration of all this high strangeness, dark side stuff that frankly I've got a documentary that I'd love to release at some point of the true story, but for now, Greystone is the sort of the fictionalized version of what we went through. And yeah, it's facing your own shadow, man. It's facing your own fears and seeing how these things manifest in, based on our fear base, I believe, the energy, that low energy of fear. That was the intention of that film. And yeah, it was such a journey to get, from the time that I started shooting it in 2009 till the time we got it released in 2012, 3 years, man, to get that movie, shot to release. It goes to show these things can be really difficult to do if you don't have any kind of, let's say studio support or producer support that can really help it, get out there. And there's a lot of films like that. I mean, every day I turn around and I'm checking on it like, oh, never even heard of this movie. There's great actors in it. Never heard of it, right? It's hard to get attention to paid to you in the distribution phase because we're now in this time period when you're not releasing movies to theaters, you're doing it streaming, and unless it catches a nerve and gets some attention, it's just like maybe some people know about it and then it kind of disappears. And where do you find it unless people talk about it? You don't know. Forget.
Yeah, like 100%. And I feel like, do you feel we've lost something like, people going to the theater less?
I mean, look, I guess I don't know if the numbers or statistics of people going to the cinema because, I believe people want to go to the cinema. Look at every year you get the Top Gun that comes out, and people go, oh, they're going in droves to see it. You get the Oppenheimer and the Barbie, and people go in droves to see it. So Sound of Freedom, people went in droves. So I don't think that people don't want to go to the theaters. I think it's just, I have this all the time where it's like, I maybe want to see that movie, but do I really want to go to the theater for it, or can I just wait and watch it at my home and stream it? And most of the time, I'm like, unless I'm really excited by the film, I just want to wait and go home and watch it at home. And I think it speaks to two things. It's like the quality of film is different. I don't think films have the standard that was there like all the way through the 90s, where most things that came out were pretty good. I mean, it was like, yeah, they'd have, you'd have garbage, but most of the time it was at least pretty good. It wasn't like a total waste of time. Um, and you had a lot of creativity and originality, coming in that time period. And now I just don't know if they're taking the same risks, or if it is, it's kind of like it's a smaller budget, or it's a straight to streamer kind of thing. So it leaves you kind of going like, you're not excited the same way. I remember growing up and just being so excited every weekend. Every weekend it was like watching the trailers and be like, I want to see that movie. I want to see that movie. I want to see that movie. Right? And you're just
Right,
like
right.
going, can't wait till that movie comes out. And the next Schwarzenegger movie, the next Van Damme movie, the next Jim Carrey movie. You're just like, right, you want to go. And now it's just like the stars aren't there. The stars are all they're all over 50. It's the same, it's the same people that we knew in the 80s and 90s that are still the stars. Tom Cruise is still the star. He's been around since the 80s. Johnny Depp, all these guys, they've been around since the 80s. Dick Cage. There's very few that are young stars.
Man, I'm excited though to see the Zendaya Challengers movie. Like, are there when was the last time you were excited like to see a movie,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I don't have that awe anymore. I think that's what's missing from me. And it's hard, because you have that inner child that wants to be in awe again, that wants to feel that excitement of, you know, going to see the movie. And even if it turns out to be disappointing, you still have the excitement of wanting to see it, right? I don't have that very much anymore. I couldn't tell you what was the last movie that I was just like, oh, I can't wait to see that.
Wow, like that's yeah, like no, sometimes though, like I still go to the theater. Like I just watched like American nonfiction at the theater. It was like a good movie. Like I was like really
American Fiction, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like yeah, that was a good movie, man.
It
And
was
like
enjoyable. I think it was very smart. It was very I got to watch it at home, but I thought it was very like, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much. Maybe, you know, you got to see it in the theater, which is good. I enjoyed it watching it at home. Just like, would I want to go to a theater for that? I don't know. Like for me, I don't know if I would go to a theater for that experience. I enjoyed it watching it at home, and I thought it was a smart movie. I thought it was very like very poignant how it was, you know, making, how do you say, just bringing this important commentary to evoke some of this woke nonsense, right? Where it's like, don't be stereotypical. Let's take things to a deeper level. I appreciated that film, but as you said, like, were you excited? Like, were you really excited to go see it, or was it more like, yeah, I'm gonna go enjoy the, you know, hopefully enjoy.
Just to be out, like I like to go to the movies, just like kind of like to do something and get out of the crib. Like I saw like the Book of Clarence too, like so like I'm probably going. I saw that movie with Wyatt Russell, the horror movie he was in too.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't like though I was like excited to see him. Like
Yeah,
shit, movies they were good movies though. Like I thought all of them were pretty good, but it's not like I'm
yeah.
a lot of times like I go like I'll see what's like at the movie theaters. I remember I was like, it was like, hey, like what's at the movie theaters? I'm like, I'm not excited to see any of these. Like, so
Well,
it's
that's
like,
the thing. I mean, I'm with you. Like, I'm like, listen, I'll take a risk, right? And I'll go see something in the theater, but it's not so much. It's more like, hey, let me try it, or this looks, you know, this looks decent. It's not like, ooh, I'm really excited to go. That's my point. You know, I guess you know, Oppenheimer, I wasn't even excited. I was just like, okay, yeah, it looks good. Like, I'll go check it out. But I wasn't, it's not the same to me as being a kid in the 90s, that whole decade. It
so
was like so
like I
exciting.
remember when like the Back to the Future movies came out, like I was so excited, like as a kid,
Right.
like the lines would be packed, like
Right.
every
People
to
people
get a
sleeping
seat.
on the street. Remember, people be sleeping on the street. You know, they'd be like sleeping over, they'd be camped out for Star Wars and Harry Potter, like 2 nights, right? The night before, they'd be camped out in lines.
What can be done to bring back that excitement to film,
It's just the quality. I mean, I really believe that it's there. I think that we can reconnect to our inner child. I think the storytelling just has to, you know, just has to be there in a way. Like, I don't know, so much of the cinema now, I don't even call it cinema. I mean, most of it's just, it's like Netflix, you know, it's just like, okay, what, you know, whatever. It's just, it looks okay. It looks like, I know, like something I've seen before, right? Most of these stories are kind of like, okay, I've seen it before. Yeah, done that. All right. You know, give it a try, right? Maybe watch a few minutes. If it's compelling, I'll stay with it. If not, I'll move on to the next one. Right. Um, you got, you know, there's very little in that way of like just the way Star Wars, you know, kind of like opens the doors and you're like, oh wow, we're opening into like we're suspending disbelief and we're going into this other world, right? That's, I think, you know, these kind of movies like Star Wars really like open that doorway since the 70s into the 80s into the 90s of like, we're going to go and suspend disbelief and we're going to go see Twister or Independence Day, right? And these big movies, and they were original. Now it's like, if you're that big movies, they're kind of like, oh, it's a Marvel movie. Okay, same concept. I mean, Blue Beetle, I didn't see it yet, but it's just like, okay, it sounds just like Spider-Man or whatever. Like, it's like the same concept over and over. Seen it before, not excited. And I think that's why people are kind of just, they're like waiting for the next, you know, moment that's going to be like, okay, this is revolutionizing film. I think something's going to come. I really do. I believe some films are going to come along and be like, oh, cool, you can actually make great movies and inspiring movies and shake people out of the like their like ho hum attitude, because that's where you get, right? You get to this place of just being like cynical. You're like, ah, whatever, until something comes along and impresses you.
What are your thoughts about like artificial intelligence? Do you think like, people will be able to make great movies? Like we've already seen like, where they've done these imitation like, songs like, of artists and
Yeah.
uh, like, is that the future of what do you think about AI?
I look, I'm someone that doesn't, I recognize the dangers of AI, but I also think that's simplistic. Like, a lot of people think of AI as the Terminator 2001. It's like, it's the robot that wants to kill you. Right? And that's like, okay, yeah, that's one potentiality of what AI could do. But we're already engaging with artificial intelligence every day. We're already engaging with it through all these different instruments like the Googles and other things. Like, they're already utilizing AI. There's the Chat GPT kind of you know, things like this. It's going to help us to, I think, technologically, to be able to maybe, you know, expedite some of the creative process, right? Like with art and things like this, it can help us with some of the just research goes, right? Like, I mean, you're researching or you're writing or whatever, you're like, hey, I give me some information, give me a perspective on this book or that theory, right? And sometimes you need something like an AI to help aggregate, right? Because there's so much information now.
Yeah.
So I'm all for using AI as a technology that we're gonna, it's gonna help propel economy, that's gonna help propel, art. But I always believe in the human. Like to me, there's nothing that's gonna replace the human spirit. You can't.
Right.
The AI the AI is a program, right? So, it never has that spirit that is within us that that we believe is divine. It comes from something beyond this dimension, right? And it works through the human, and it's that creative spark, and it's the imagination, it's knowing how to use the AI, right? The AI is useless if there's no humans to work with it. It becomes just like like a computer that has no power. It's like, what's the point? We need to have that spark, the energy, the creativity to know how to use it. So I see AI as potentially helping to with the creative process, with the with our evolution of economies and things like this. But yes, and there will be a danger, but there's always a danger. I mean, it's like nuclear power. There's a danger of the nuclear bomb, but thus far, knock on wood, there hasn't been an accident when it comes to the nuclear bomb. So we have to treat AI with that kind of same respect and um, conscious, relationship where we're not just going to, have an accident or end up destroying ourselves with it.
Yeah, like and AI, like is already like writing scripts, and then the studios. I think one of the issues with the WGA strike was like they were having AI make scripts, then they would hire a writer to rewrite the scripts. So like they were paying the writer less than what they would have paid like if they had paid them originally, and then the concept of the idea, where does that material from AI come from? Like, that's obviously copyrightable material because the AI has to learn from copyrighted material. So like, those are like, real issues that we're dealing with. And then like I feel like, we have this thing with like the deep fake videos where
Mm-hmm.
people are just like putting content online, and like it appears like, this is actual like like stuff like, like it'll like some of this stuff has gone viral, where what can you will become a point like where we see things online like what can we believe, what can we not?
Um, well, look, I mean, this has always been a problem. Like this is it's we already are confronting this when it comes to history books, when it comes to when it comes to any interpretation of reality. The question is how discerning are we as intuitively, right? This is where I believe we have to, as humans, connect to our intuition to know where what's important, what's relevant to my life and to my reality, and not to get too caught up in belief systems or information, because yeah, it's all information war. I mean, if the press says something, news comes out with something, you read a book. I mean, all these things can be misinformation as well. All these things can be misinformed. They can be off. They can be wrong. It's always been about human discernment. That's why I go back to like, yeah, we can't be subservient to the AI. We have to be in charge of it as the humans, recognizing that it's serving us, and it's just like everything, information, knowledge. It's like if we don't have wisdom as humans, human wisdom, we don't know what to do with that information, right? So we got to keep cultivating that. We have to keep cultivating our own wisdom, our own intuition, our own insights, our own awareness. Otherwise, we don't know how to use the information that comes to us and to discern, what's important and what's fake and what's for entertainment, right, and amusement.
Man, you bring up some really valid points, and I was reading online that you converted in 2012 to Shia Islam. Is
Well, I mean, I never said I converted. I said I accepted, Muhammad as a prophet in the lineage of the prophets of one God. So, people are very like so interested in dividing, and I'm like, there's no division to me. It's just okay, it's one tradition. There's a whole lineage of prophets. You read the Old Testament. There's just men. It's like prophet after prophet after prophet. I think Muhammad came to basically teach those same principles, to the Arabic world. He included Jesus and recognized Jesus as divine. And so that's I think the main just difference, I guess, between like Islam and Islam and Judaism is like respecting and acknowledging Jesus, and then the difference between Islam and Christianity is just Muslims don't think Jesus is God. They think he's an emissary of God. So it's just like these little distinctions, but I'm not a particularly religious person, so I don't get caught up with these, different interpretations of how people want to practice their faith.
Um, I guess like your last episode of like RT America was like, pretty controversial. You had like criticized like, some celebrities for speaking out against Russia's invasion. And you claimed that Oprah Winfrey had blamed Tolstoy's War and Peace from banned Tolstoy's War and Peace from her book club. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah, I guess I think what happened, I'm not sure if that was true. I think what happened was there were memes going around. And so I guess I had read a meme because remember we were in that Russophobe, like that was everyone kind of went crazy about Russia at that time. And maybe it was like a joke. And maybe I thought it was real news that Oprah had banned Tolstoy's War and Peace because we were at that time and everything Russian was being banned, don't forget. So I may have misspoken on that. But again, the intention was to say, look, people are getting hysterical about Russia. It was all Russia, Russia, Russia. I mean, look, in the context of where we are now, I think a lot of Americans have kind of woken up and realized this Ukraine war is a drain and it's been a waste of money and it's ridiculous and all this narrative that like Russia is trying to like take over Europe and first it's going to invade Ukraine. I mean, all that was nonsense. So I understood that. I knew what was going on. I understood the division in Ukraine. I mean, my dad did two documentaries on it. One was called Ukraine on Fire, and it was focused on the Maidan coup, which was the U.S. State Department backed coup against the government in Ukraine at the time, and how that basically instigated a lot of this conflict with Russia, and then it's just been endless conflict in the Donetsk or the Donbas region in the east of Ukraine ever since then, because there's a real rift, in Ukraine between like Russian speaking Ukrainians and then more Western Ukrainians who are like almost trying to ban Russian as a language and trying to really like kind of separate themselves from the Russian identity. So there's a real civil war. Anyway, I was aware of it, so I've talked about that in the last RT. That wasn't the last NRT interview though. That's not even true because I haven't had a show on RT since 2020. I did it I think I don't know why they were Wikipedia was trying to like, make me look like a fool or something, but I actually do I do contributions on RT all the time. I still like, talk on just whatever the topic may be. Like last we were talking about the Israel Gaza war, or I talked on the border, like the Texas border issue. I mean, I contribute them, probably every week or two.
Okay. Yeah. You can't really believe like what you read on Wikipedia or like online. Like, there's a lot of inaccuracies in like major news publications. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's like I wonder like how can you say like this is the credible source when it seems like they're wrong like quite a bit. You know,
It's not credible. They're just they have an agenda, and because their agenda is part of what's considered the establishment agenda, right? So it's like the predominant globalist worldview. They have a few instruments, right? The major news outlets are all essentially owned by the same corporations, and that like that is the globalist perspective, right? So when all the media is going, saying the same stuff, whether it's like about COVID or about Trump or whatever, it's like you understand that there's an agenda. There's not a real journalistic impulse. Real journalism is like you're trying to show multiple sides. You're not just trying to make it like, well, this is the side that's right. This is the side that's true. It's like you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to be, supposed to be unbiased. You're supposed to kind of try to show both sides and make them and try to give them both their stage, not to like just basically pedestalize one and trash the other one, which is what the news does these days.
most definitely. Like, we live in such polarized times. Sean, like, it's the beginning of the year, 2024. What are you expecting to do, like, for the rest of the year? Some of your goals, anything, projects you got coming up that you want to talk about?
I can't really talk about what's upcoming because we're just not there yet. I keep things under wraps, but
Sure.
um I would say, people that are unfamiliar with my work should go to my website, seanstone.info. There's a bunch of documentaries that I've done that are linked there, including my most recent one, Best Kept Secret, which is a docuseries all about how I consider the dark cabal rules humanity, human trafficking, like blackmail and pedophilia, um, debt slavery, mind control, the transhuman agenda. We cover a lot of ground in that series. It's pretty much like a total purple pill, red pill with the blue pill, right? Like mix it together, take the purple pill. And it's gonna wake some people up that are just kind of like just starting to learn or see things they might want to start with that series, Best Kept Secret.
Man, that sounds very intriguing. I would love like you and me and stuff to check that out. Sean, man, I really appreciate you for taking the time and stuff and everything. Like, I wish we had got a chance to do the in person. I was looking like, to go to Naples, man, like the videographers. It was like, it's so hard to find videographers there. But yeah,
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, look, it's all project by project, but who knows? Maybe there'll be opportunity.
for sure, man. Sean, thank you so much for the time.
You got it. Thank you.